So for making the doll's eyes, I have zoomed you in immensely. I've done the eyes on this dark toned skin color already, and I've pulled the eyes in on this lighter skin tone, and I will show you how I did that. This is what it looks on the back side. This is what it looks on this darker skin tone. So what you need to pull in the eyes is strong thread and a, well, for these dolls, a medium-sized doll needle. And I'm showing you how you position the eyes. On this really small doll, you see that I have used really small pins and dark pins of the same color, because I'm also showing you what not to do, and that is using pins that are too big for the doll and the measurements that you can see on this doll. I mean, this doll, I know her eyes are going to be beautiful, and this doll is kind of ridiculous. Also, the pins are sticking out on the back side, and this is not workable. So get some small pins. And also on this really small doll, you see that I've used smaller pins even, and they don't stick out. Makes. And also what not to do is using colors that are not eye colors. This looks ridiculous, and I've done this on purpose, because you can either take a blue one or a white one, and it will also look ridiculous. I mean, in this doll, I cannot say if the measurement is right, and in this doll it looks perfectly fine. So this is what you should do, and this is what you shouldn't do. But now I will get some thread in this needle and show you how to pull the eyes. Let me just pause the video and adjust the settings. So what I did was take 2 strands of thread, really strong thread, and they have the same length and they are quite long, but you need this to work with the threads. I am going to use, well, I've pulled out the pins because they looked so ridiculous. With your nail, you can feel that eye line that we made underneath this skin tone. So take out 1 pin, and you can still see a little hole there. Let me put it in camera. You can still see the little hole there. And now with my needle, I'm going in, and you see all these lines here, and they matter. I'm going in on top of the line that is underneath. I can still feel it with my nail. And I'm going to push this to the back of the head, and I want it to come out, because this eye, I want to stay on this side of the line here at the back, but I want it to come out here at the bottom of the head, because if you feel on your own head, there is a little dent inside your skull there, and if we take these strands of thread and put them there, then your doll will get the same anatomy as your own head. I need to make sure I stay in frame because I have you zoomed in immensely. So now it looks like this. So thread your needle again on the front side of the doll. And this is the easy way to pull the eyes. I also have a advanced way to pull the eyes, and that way you start at the back, but let's do it the easy way for the first time. And now again, I want to stay in the same line. And now I want to go underneath. Yeah, I can't show you, but there with my nail, I can feel the thread that we've pulled for the eyeline of the doll. And now I will put my needle underneath and go to the back of the head again and make sure I do not cross this line internally inside the doll, because then you cannot pull the strings properly or they will break. But now I want to come out even lower, not much, but just a bit, and pull that needle through. And now I have the eye on the front, and if I pull on the strings at the back, I can pull the eye in, and this way the doll gets more expression. But it looks quite silly now because, well, there's just one eye that has been pulled in. Don't pull these eyes in too far. Maybe I can do that, because now, well, on camera it still looks fine, but in real it's starting to look ridiculous. Just ease it off a bit and leave it like this. But I'm going to leave this thread now and do the other eye, and then I'll be back. So I've done both eyes now, as you can see, and I've pulled them in slightly. And now on the back side, you've got 4 strings, and you need to keep these 2 and these 2 together. Make a single knot, and start pulling it. And this is why you need really strong thread, because if you pulled on this with weaker thread, it would break for sure. And by putting in a knot before you start pulling, you pull on both eyes equally, and that is a thing that matters really. And now comes the difficult part, because now I have to turn it around. I have to lay it on the table, put one hand on the knot and make a second knot on top of that first knot without the first knot slipping. And this is something that you should probably practice. And these are my two eyes. I am going to color these eyes in with, so this is a range of watercolor pencils that I use for my dolls. These ones are by Caran d'Ache, and they came in a set, and I've used just these 3 colors for years together with a brown, but I found that this red was too bright. I don't like my dolls to look like clowns, and this blue was too bright, and I used to cover this up with a little bit of brown. But I have found these pencils by, they're called Van Gogh pencils by, let me see, Royal Talents Holland. So these are Dutch brands, but I'm sure you can find really nice colored watercolor pencils. I bought these separately, and I find that this color is like a pinky red. It's called Madder Lake Deep. I love this warm gray deep. This is Caput Mortum as a brown, blue green, a really dark blue, and this is more like a purple. It is ultramarine violet. And I love these to use for the eyes. Normally I use these for the eyes and this for the mouth, and also to give the doll a little bit of blush on her cheeks. Is I wet the tip of the pencil, and of course I did not have any water with me at this moment, but I wet the tip of the pencil and make sure they are really sharp, because if you have blunt pencils, then the eye will become much too big. And then I color in the eye. You can always make them bigger. And if by chance you have completely, well, in your mind made a much too large eye, you can wash this with just water and soap and take the color off completely, because your head is so firm that it won't change if you wet it. And now to make the doll's mouth, I do use a red pin because, well, that looks best. And I am, oh, let me get in frame. I am looking to get a triangle between the eyes and the mouth. So this is not right for me yet, so I will move it just one of these little stripes on the fabric. Yeah, this is much better. So now I'm taking the pin out and I can still see the little hole in there. And with my pencil, first I use the pencil dry. I'm just making a little mark. You can't even see this. Can you see it? It is ever so light, but if I'm okay with it, then I wet my pencil and then I'm going to make that mark stronger. I'm going to pause the video and get some water so I can show you what I do. So I have a really tiny bit of water here in this little bowl. I'm wetting the pencil and trying it out on a scrap piece of fabric first. And you see here that I get a wonderful little line. I think that is perfect. I'm going to dip it in once more. And now I'm going to carefully put a little mouth on my doll. You see the color becomes so much more vibrant if I wet the pencil. And for me, this is enough. I don't want the doll to have a completely clownish expression, and I'm going to give this doll, I want her eyes to be this gray. This is also a really nice color. I'm going to use it on the scrap piece again first, and you see here that it makes a wonderful color. This is not as strong as black, but it is a really nice eye color, I think. And well, let me get this in camera. If I put it on like this, and the other one, oh, and I did mess this one up a bit. You can see there's something underneath the eye and something on top of the eye. And I'm really, if I'm really quickly, I can get it off. So this is really close up. I can put it further back, and now I think it looks really lovely. And to give the cheeks some color, I put a little red on a scrap piece of fabric again, just like this. And with this scrap of fabric, I'm just going to lightly color her cheeks. Well, this one became rather the first time that you do this, it might be a bit scary, but like I told you, if it is too much, you can still rub it off. And now she has some rosy cheeks. I'm not going to do anything more to this head. I think it is just lovely. And the next thing I'm going to show you is with this little doll is the even more difficult way to pull the eyes in, because this is so small. Well, you could do it the same method that I did here, but there's also another way. for the more advanced seamstresses among us. And for that I need one large string of thread. Let me put these aside. It is difficult to stay in frame, but I want you to see it properly. So my hands look really big. So this is the more advanced way. I'm going in at the back of the head and pushing my needle to the front, taking the pin out, and I'm still able to see that little hole. Well, this is of course a tiny head, so coming out here at the front, just underneath where my pin was, and making sure that I'm underneath that eye line that is inside, pulling this one through. So now my beginning is at the back of the head, and I've pulled it through to this side, feeling where that thread inside is again, and going over it with my needle, and then pushing this back inside the head again, staying on this side of the line because, well, I'm working on this side of the head, coming out above the other line so they don't cross in the internally, pulling that through. Now I've got one eye, looks like this, and now I'm going to the other one. On the back of the head, I'm going to this side of the head, pulling the pin out again. I know where that eye is because I can still see that little hole. And now I want to come out with my needle from the back side, pushing it to the front side. And this is a little fiddly because this is not where I want it to be. I can still see that little hole there. That's where I want to go. Keep in frame, please. Camera. I want my eye to be right here. And this method does take a lot of practice. I mean, I've been making dolls for, well, 15 years, and I've managed to perfect this only by doing it multiple times. Going underneath that eye line, making sure that I'm going there and pushing it back into the head, making sure my lines don't cross. I'm coming out here again. And now I can pull on the strings. I only have 2 strings now on the back of the head, and I get the eyes looking like this. So now I'm making a knot again at the back. I have to do this on the table. Can't get it in front of the camera because, well, I need my hands. And now you see again why you need that strong thread. Checking at the front if they are not pushed in too far. I like it like this. And then tying it off again with a double knot, making sure that the other knot is not slipping. Checking again. And to me they are perfect. Now for this doll, I have to make the eyes smaller. So I would get a really sharp, well, this point is really sharp, and just make two small eyes, because if I would make them this big, it would look ridiculous. I'm not wetting this pencil because the eyes would become far too big for my liking. And then taking my rosy red pencil out again. Well, you could obviously put a pin in here, but I'm seeing a triangle already. And I'm making a little dot first, and then just making an ever so small line with my pencil. To make the mouth. Now, and because this skin tone is so much lighter than this skin tone, I can still use the piece of leftover fabric that I had from coloring her cheeks and still use this little bit to give her cheeks some color. And for this skin tone, you don't want your color too bright, because, well, then she would look like a clown again. So there's just a hint of color on there, and for me that is enough. So big sis and small sis are ready now to make skeletons, and I'm going to pause the video here and show you how I do the skeletons for these dolls for my dollhouse. What I forgot to tell you is that, of course, you have to get rid of these long threads, and like I've showed you with making the first things of the doll head, you just thread your needle again and put them through the head, and that way your knots here will never come loose. Well, I couldn't resist myself. Look at these strands sticking out and then me pushing on the head, and they're gone. It's easier with these larger heads than with the smaller heads, but yeah, that's what you do. You tie off these knots and then pull the strings through the head. So you guys, now on to the part where we make a skeleton, and I've gone ahead and finished this doll. I was so happy with how these faces turned out, and I just had to make myself a little doll for my dollhouse already. I just used what I had. Felt, well, if you've seen my video about my craft room, you know that I have a ton of felt. So I've used felt, I've used old handkerchiefs and a bit of silk that I had, and I also had this Wensleydale wool that was beautifully dyed by another crafter. I don't know her name because I bought this at a fair, but I love using Wensleydale wool for the wigs. Let's move on in making this skeleton. For these little cuties, I will probably use a pipe cleaner, but because this will not show up on video very well, I mean, I have to zoom in a lot to show you how I'm doing this. I'm putting these aside for now. I will do these off camera. This is the same doll's head that this little doll has, and it's absolutely okay to use electrical wire for this size doll, but for video purposes I'm going to use one of these dolls, and I'm going to use which one? I'm going to use this doll. And I have my little display figurine here. I will put her like this to show you that, well, her head is even slightly bigger than this head, but if I were to make limbs on her this big, it would probably be possible, but it would look weird. I mean, then it would look like as if my doll was a yeah, an adult, but she wouldn't go well with all the little elements that I have in my dollhouse. So what I do is I just look at my other dolls and I just eye on the size that I want my doll's limbs to be. And I keep in consideration that I do want to bend the ends in order to make the hands look really nice. So let me do that now and show you what this will look like. And to make a skeleton, I like to put a circle in the middle of this. So I need extra length for the hands, but I think I like this length. I'm going to cut it a little further so that I've got some room to work with this. And now for the legs, I want a size, I just eye it again, like this. Make them too long and you can always cut a piece off. Make them too short and you have to get yourself a new piece of wire to make this. So putting this aside, and I will zoom you in a bit so you can see what I'm doing. That's out. This is in. I'm going to take a seat and show you what I'm doing next. So for making these, you need a set of pliers. My husband just bought me this because he used mine and lost them. So yeah, he's a sweetheart. So he immediately bought me a new set. It's a wonderful set, by the way. So I have this part, and what I forgot to mention, that a little part of this I'm going to stick inside the head so the head sits firmly on the skeleton. And for that I'm going to do something that might cringe you, but this is the way you do this. You cut inside. I should have gotten paper fabric scissors, but you cut it in on both sides. Let me just pause and get some proper scissors. Sorry for that, I just needed to get some proper scissors. Cut it in like this, and then you still see there's still this bit of wool that we did not use for the head, and now I'm going to poke a hole gently, and then I can put the part in of my legs. It's sticking in here, and now I want my arms to go around it, and in order to get the arms equal length, I'm first going to round this part too. Make sure that my hands are facing the same way, and then folding it in half, because that makes your life a lot easier, because you don't want the arms to have different lengths. I mean, even the slightest difference will show, especially when you make small dolls like this. bend it like this, then put it around the leg part, and then fold one part over to the right side and the other part over to the left side. And then fold your fabric back over. And I'm going to get some thread now, and I need a sewing kit, and sew this body over this skeleton. So a minute. So I've taken thread in another color for you to see what I'm doing, and well, this part will be covered completely, so it doesn't matter what kind of thread that you use. I'm just putting it on the doll by doing a couple of stitches again. And the stitches that you use to close this, it doesn't matter. Just do some stab stitching or whatever is easiest for you. And you don't have to make small stitches or anything at this moment. And I do want to put some stitches in between the legs, and then close the other part. And I'm making big stitches so I can make it to the top. So secure the thread by doing a couple of stitches and then cut it off. And now, in order to see if our hands are, or if our arms are equally long, you can fold them in front of the doll and they're equally long, so this is perfect. And the legs are slightly too long, but that won't be a problem because I'm going to bend this for the feet. So, but until now I'm going to keep it like this. I'm going to get some wool roving and show you what I do to give this body some some meat. So I've got two types of wool again. One is the wool that I used for filling and the other is wool roving. And for me, it doesn't matter what I use. I like them both. This kind of clings to itself a little bit better, but from this you can get really nice strands of wool to use to cover the skeleton. Always use really thin plies because you can always add to it, but you don't want your doll to look like a little bodybuilder. So this is even too much for this little doll. I'm going to start out with just a little bit like this, and I'm going to lay the wool alongside the arm, and then I'm going to twist the wool around without turning it on itself. So just twisting it around. And this might take some practice, because if you see, if I let it go, it just yeah, just unravels itself again. And you don't want to pull too hard on this, because then you will pull it apart quite easily. But now that I'm going back, it will start to have a grip on itself. And this part was really thin, so for this you can practice your patience. Just keep turning it and make sure you don't twist it. And even that last little part, take it, and now it stays. It is not really firm yet, but I can work with it. If this doesn't stay like it does on mine, then you can also take a piece of thread, tie a knot, because you won't see anything of this anymore once we start dressing this doll. So make some knots, and then just turn the thread around your wool, and this will secure it even better. And if you like your doll to be a little bit chunkier, a little bit like muscular or anything, then by all means put another piece of wool roving over. But I like them to be rather slim, and with the clothes I can give them some more body. So now I want to show you with the other type of wool. This is wool that I carded myself, I've cleaned myself. I will try to get another piece of dirty sheep's wool and show you this summer how I clean the wool. So the method is the same, just twisting it around. And I'll probably don't have enough to go back all the way. This doesn't bother me too much, because I am going to make some hands from the same material as her face, and I want obviously to do her hands in the same skin tone that I did her face. I don't have that here with me, but I'm going to get that later on. And now I'm going to do the legs, and I have this one left here, so I'm going to use that one. It's just the same thing that you do over and over again, so you can have a good practice. So for the hands, you just need a piece of leftover fabric, and make sure that you can stretch it this way, and then see what side you want to be on the outside, because, well, I can see a little more fluff on this side, so I want that to be on the inside ultimately. So I'm going to fold it over like this. And then if you put your doll on here, I'm making 2 hands out of this little piece, but you don't want the doll's hands to be really wide. You don't want them to look like she's got mittens on. So I am going to draw with my pencil, and I've taken out a really, a 4B, so it's really soft, so I can see it on the fabric. So you can see I've just about taken the width of the doll's hands here. It is going to be a little bit bigger because this can stretch, and I can put some extra wool in there. But for now, I'm going to sew these with small back stitches in a skin tone color. I'm going to have to do that off camera because, well, it might take me a minute to do this, but you know by now how to do back stitching and everything because you saw me do that on the doll's head. And then I'll be back to show you how to attach these. So I did the stitching, and with this one I have already cut a really tiny seam around the hand, and therefore you need this really good jersey, because if you get jersey from a quality that is less than this, you will rip the jersey once you turn this hand. I've got these hemostats, so this is really handy to turn the hands, but you could also do this with a pencil. And I'm lazy, so I left my thread attached to this one because I'm going to use that thread to put the hands on the doll. And these are not as teeny tiny as the hands would be on this little doll. And therefore, for demonstration purposes, I'm using one of the biggest dolls that I made for now. So I'm putting the hand on like this. And I like it that there's not too much wool inside the hands, because this way they stay rather flat, and I like this shape. And now, oh, excuse my dog. I'm going to attach this hand to the wool roving that is underneath. I'm going to pause the video. Hold on. I'm using the wool roving to attach everything together. So putting my needle through the wool and making some back stitches. Well, my hand is in the way, obviously, but and we will cover this up. And if you want your doll to have bare arms until a part of the dress, then you obviously make this sleeve much longer. That is also doable, but for this time I'm showing you this way. It's secure enough now. I'm going to cut it off. And I'm going to do the other hand in the same way. Now let me get a piece of paper so I can show you what I mean with making hands. So it's just simple. It's really nothing more than this form. And you backstitch from here until here. That's all you do. But make sure that when you pull the fabric, that the stretch goes that way. So this is all it is for making hands. Obviously, you make a much smaller hand for her than you do for her. And that is just practice and just do it. And if the hands are too big, you know, don't worry, you just can cut them off and start again. I have pulled along another doll to show you that with this doll I did the legs and the arms completely out of skin tone. Like I mentioned here, if I would elongate this part, then you get a doll looking like this. But what I don't like about this is that, well, it looks like she's an old lady with some chicken skin. It is rather loose, and it's okay for this doll because, well, she's just a figurine that is sitting somewhere. But if dolls are to be played with, then this is much firmer to use felt. And next time I'm going to show you how to do these boots. These are just filled with a tiny little bit of wool. There's nothing more in there because she just sits. In this doll's feet, I've used a little piece of lead. You know, these slabs that you can get from the DIY store. I'm not sure if you can get lead in your country because it is toxic, and if you're working with it, you should wear gloves or wash your hands immediately after. But if you put lead in her feet, she can stand up. And if you don't, well, obviously this doll is never going to stand. But that's okay for that doll. For this doll, I wanted something different. But we're going to do the clothes next time. I'm going to show you how I make clothes, and I'm also going to show you how I design them, because it is not really difficult if you want a figurine just for your dollhouse to make clothes that, I mean, you can't take them off. You can't play with them and take them off, but that makes it a whole lot easier to make clothes. Thank you for watching this video. I hope I was able to teach you a little bit about doll making, especially these little dolls that can go inside a dollhouse or can be lovely display figurines. Thank you for being here. If you like to support me, then do subscribe to my channel. Give this video a thumbs up, and if you have some time, do leave a comment down in the comment section. I read them and I love all your comments. Next time I'm going to show you how we do the clothes, and I'm going to show you how to do the boots. If you want to see more doll videos, I have a playlist that I will link down below, and I will put all my doll making videos in that playlist so you can watch it all the time. Thank you for now and hope to see you again soon. Bye bye.